which is kind of cool because we did our pre-conference call together as well. We have Robert Weber, Principal Software Engineer at Todyl. We have Kevin Coston, Cloud Security Architect at Akamai. We have Tiffany Taylor, Cybersecurity Architect, Architecture and Implementation at the Herjavec Group. We have Ricky Martin, Senior Cyber Solutions Engineer at McKesson. And we have Ron Sharon, Head of Technology and Information Security at Mercer Advisors. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to the stage. We're going 10 minutes over, so we'll just keep on going 10 minutes over. That's absolutely fine. We often in these MSS forums talk about the fact that perhaps the technical specialist isn't kept in the loop. We're going to probe that when we look at this this sort of contact. But perhaps a nice place to start, and maybe Tiffany, if we start with you, because you're on my screen over here, and we go around. Let's first define what we mean by an architect, because maybe that's a good place to start. I know there's MSS architects, in-house architects, architects of the future, engineer, architect getting blurred. What's an architect? I think you're on mute.
Still haven't figured out how to use Zoom. I see it's been a year. Okay, so from my perspective, an architect is someone who can take whatever technical needs an organization has and translates those from a actual engineering perspective. And they can also bring together whatever idea you have, whether your on-prem network, your cloud network. They're just actually a person who can bring together ideas from different groups and make them work for whatever the organization's long-term goal is.
Okay, someone that brings people from different groups and actually makes it happen. Well, I already see why we get the impression that the architect is dumped on from high above. Robert, you're next on my screen. What is this distinction between blowing the lines between engineers and architects?
Yeah, so architects have to, in many ways, be like the connection point between the day-to-day engineering tasks of developing customer value and products, and then all of these higher level customer needs. Sometimes those needs are technical needs, like resiliency, or all of the security concerns that need to be dealt with, but some of them are also sometimes psychological needs, like making how can our product make our customers feel more confident that we're providing a kind of this mutual success idea. So the architect kind of sits in between and at best like bridges the gap between very technical, like how are we going to solve this region problem, how are we going to solve this security concern, how are we going to be compliant with these things, to the higher level, which is customer needs and customer comfort level with everyone needs to know that their security provider is giving them the security that they need for all these new threats that we've been talking about all day. Okay,
I like it. Well, let's take that and develop it a bit further. Ron, we're talking about this architect, and why in this context are we talking about it? Because we are wondering about the relationship between the end user and the third party of the future. Is the architect, in effect, the secret for transforming either that end user MSS relationship, or is the architect the secret for transforming an MSP into an MSS? Now, I don't know if you're going to talk to the latter, but I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, well, the architect is a bridge between the client and the engineers. Their main job is to, like in a house, to translate the client wants A, B, C, D. The engineer knows there is, this is what we can do. It's the architect's job to say, okay, I'm taking what the client wants, and I'm taking what I know from the engineering world, because he's also in technical engineering. And then he says, this is what we are going to do. This is how I'm going to build the house. This is how I'm going to build your security systems. This is how I'm going to build your technology stack, because this is, I know the wishes of the clients, and then I know the technical capabilities of the technical side as well. So I would say it is the secret sauce. It's definitely the bridge that makes everything work together.
All right, bridge and secret sauce. Ricky, do you feel like a secret sauce?
Sometimes I feel like a secret sauce. You never know. But yeah, I would say it's kind of key, as Ron mentioned, is understanding the two sides and being able to bridge that gap from the technical to the non-technical and being able to translate back and forth. That's kind of the biggest challenge, I would say, for architects or engineers, depending on what title you want to use, right? That's usually where the challenge lies, is translating what the customer needs and wants into what technically can be done, or at least an minimum viable product, if you want, with the solution.
And Ricky, do you think there's any truth to what we kind of alluded to earlier? Just as the architect feels put upon because someone in leadership has just said, "Go on, we've bought this, deal with it." So the engineer feels put upon by the architect. Is there any mileage in exploring that dynamic?
Yeah, I think that does happen quite a bit. It kind of depends on the organization and the size and structure of it. But yeah, a lot of times there'll be software or solutions that are purchased higher up that are forced upon the teams to make work, right? And I think that's usually where a lot of times the architect may not have the hands, boots on the ground experience with the end users to understand the challenges that they might face using those products or solutions. And that's kind of where the engineer comes in and can because they sometimes bridge that gap, can leverage their end user experience and interactions and translate that into a more sustainable solution.
I love it. And as per your background, maybe the engineer can turn back time and play with it.
Never know, and change history.
You never know. I like it. Kevin, it's great to have you back on this panel because you very kindly talked about the architects of the future in the first MSS Denver and the second MSS Denver. We often talk about the architect in. Well, look, before, do you remember we had the Eric's presentation before, and we said, a marketer is a marketer, they're not a security professional. Is it unfair to say that the architect lacks social or business skills? Because in fact, that's not really their job.
I wouldn't say it's unfair, just given the fact of what we do. It's been explained a couple times throughout the forum that we are the liaison between the BU and between the technology. So business people don't speak tech jargon, and tech people don't speak business jargon. Or, sometimes we do. We speak in SLAs, we speak in use cases, things like that, but it's very limited. In my capacity, like it was mentioned earlier throughout the call, my job is to sit with a customer or a partner to deduce what use case they have and translate it to my engineering team so that we can effectively, produce a solution. So in terms of, having those skills to bridge that gap, it's absolutely necessary. I think that even if you aren't a social butterfly, you can formulate the right talk track and the right words to deduce what your customer is looking for as far as a use case and what they're trying to get done. I don't think you necessarily need to be the quote unquote cool guy, but I do think that social skills are a part of it because you have to be able to enunciate properly to the teams, whether it be a sales team, whether it be an engineering team, whether it be a SOC, what the customer is trying to accomplish. If clear communication isn't laid out throughout the tenure of your integration, then it's going to fall to the wayside. And that's kind of where that chasm falls between the architect not necessarily telling the engineer what exactly they were supposed to be doing.
So there is a little bit of truth to it, I guess. And do you see anything? I don't know. Do you see any rivalry between the external architect and the internal architect? Because surely there's a bit of duplication, and surely no amount of communication buttering up is going to solve that one.
Absolutely. And that's, that comes with just the nature of the business. I mean, if I were to consult you on a product and, for instance, get it implemented and it's turned over to your engineers to handle as far as administration and something goes wrong, obviously they're going to look out for themselves. That's just kind of the nature of human beings, right? But in order to kind of quash some of those things, that's where, cold handoffs and hot handoffs need to kind of disappear. We need to go to a warm handoff. We need to act as though those external engineers are part of our team. And when I'm working with integrations, I typically don't call my customers customers, I call them partners, because I want them to know that, hey, you guys have action items and I have action items. If we don't handle our action items accordingly, we're not going to get to the goal of what we're trying to accomplish. So I have seen that, but there are ways to handle that. And I think one of the biggest ways is, letting everyone know that, hey, this isn't just a you buy, it's out of the box, it works. This requires some effort on your side, and we have some action items that we need you to take care of as well. So if you lay those expectations out early, I think it'll quell some of that stuff. But it's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? If somebody gets things blamed on them because they went through procurement, it was something that they thought would work, they didn't necessarily do enough research, and it gets placed in their pocket and they need more support hours or something like that, and they need to use billable hours or something of that nature, and yeah, it's going to come back to them, and they're going to, just human nature, they're going to point a finger.
I like it, and I think I've stolen already hashtag warm handoffs. It's important, isn't it? Because
Absolutely.
it improves the relationship. Tiffany, then, what beyond better communication skills? Because let's face it, that's what everyone gets on their annual report when their manager doesn't know what to say. Beyond better communication skills, what is it that's going to improve the architect of tomorrow? What is it that they don't know?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, I mean, I hate to belabor this, but communication, I mean, that is really going to be a top skill for the architect of the future, because they're going to have to be able to communicate with their teams internally and externally, and actually with themselves, as far as, hey, what's out there? What do I need to know? What do I need to look out for? Who do I need to proactively reach out to as far as vendors that, we're associated with as partners? Or, hey, I actually just may have seen a commercial for some product and I have an interest, am I going to reach out, to that vendor? Of course. You have to be sort of fearless in your communication. That's just not going to go away. And part of that is being able to say, hey, I actually don't have the answer for you right now, but we'll find it, or we're searching for it. And I think that probably garners confidence from your customers, partners, clients, however we like to refer to them. I don't think we can get past that.
Okay. Well, no. Fair dues. I guess we don't. It's a lot of unknown unknowns, because tomorrow you'll need 20 years Kubernetes experience, which is the joke of the day. All right. Well, let's do a step change, but let's ask, what has the current climate, because we're not saying COVID, done to the cloud on-prem, off-prem debate, and what has that done to the architect of tomorrow? Tiffany, what's your sense on that?
Basically that it tells us that we have to be able to collaborate, with our on-prem and with the cloud, because of what's happening in the future. We have more workloads in the cloud, but we're not getting rid of our on-prem data centers. So we have to sort of throw that out the window, that we're going to one thing. And then this goes back to collaboration and communication. You have to be able to communicate with your network guys on-prem, just like you have to communicate with your network cloud people, and sort of be able to bridge whatever knowledge gap there is there, which, if I'm honest, I actually think your on-prem network guy would be perfect for your cloud networking or anything else that you're doing as far as the cloud. Like, we can't forget the people we already have. It's really good to maybe, train them, upskill them for the cloud, because they already have the foundational knowledge needed to make any shift to the cloud successful.
Okay, well then that's interesting, because obviously there's people in larger MSS backgrounds and people in not so large MSP backgrounds at this event. So that's interesting. What about you, Robert? Obviously, maybe a different size company, a different perspective. What has the current climate done, for the on-prem off-prem debate as related to the architect?
Yeah, I think the big change that I'm seeing in the new architect is, long gone are the days where you have the off and the on. It used to be you could just set up a secure internal network for the people who go to the office, and then you'd have like a VPN or some sort of external connection that was kind of like the second-class citizen of networking. Now it's work everywhere, right? So the ideal for at least smaller businesses and the people that utilize our product is, we just want everyone to have the same experience, whether you're sitting in the office plugged into the network, or whether you're on the public Wi-Fi in your own building, but not really on the private Wi-Fi anymore, or whether you're in the coffee shop across the street, or whether you're, you know, off-site, you know, in a 5G network doing, you know, let's say, you know, something related to the thing we're not talking about, you know, sitting there trying to do things in a secure manner with the compliance all in place, yet you've got, but you're not on any kind of network that we've ever seen before, you know, high-speed wireless networks. And so what I'm seeing is people have stopped thinking about them as two separate things. Like, there's just, what is the security posture for a end user everywhere, plugged into the home network, not. And so it's a change. I mean, it's a long coming change. Like, we always in security, we used to talk about the M&M principle, is that people would set up this big, hard, crunchy outside, and then everything on the inside was soft, right? It was all chocolate and it all melted away, right? Well, we can't do that anymore. And this is the moment that we as an industry have to just stop. Like, you can't just make this really secure outer shell around your private infrastructure, not just because of, you know, people working from remotely, but also internet sort of threats. Everything's coming together, and you start thinking about individual endpoints as, you know, we have to design such that doesn't matter where they're sitting, they have to be secure. We have to do all the steps to keep that security, no matter where they are. They're everywhere now. So that's what I'm seeing is the big change that this last year and a half has brought, is it's no longer possible to pretend like you have two networks anymore. You have one network and you have one security posture.
I like it. And Brian Stoner, he comments, do you speak acronym? It is the security language. So
it's important to speak it, because it's like all the TLAs are different depending on which security thing you're in, or whether you're networking or whether you're programming or medical. It's all the same. So we only have so many letters to work with, right? Got to Unicode all our TLAs.
Yeah, SLPs, SMSP, MSS. But I'm sure everyone can out-acronym me, so I won't even go there. Ron, what do you think the architect is going to have to do to form a better relationship with a cloud provider, as opposed to everything they've been doing thus far? And that, of course, leads on from the workload, looking at on-prem, off-prem, and the current climate.
Well, I wanted to add that one of the things that an architect of the future will need is also the ability to change rapidly, to respond to changes that happen in an instant. Let's just say things we're not talking about right now. People would need to go work from home in 2-3 days. Bam. How do I adapt to it? How do I do it in a fast, efficient, secure way? That's also very important for the architect of the future. I just wanted to add that part. Architects of the future are going to work in mostly, like Robert said, in a unified environment, which includes the cloud and on-prem. They will need to have a direct contact, somebody in these different platforms that we use today, to get information ahead of time. Let's just say certain vendors, they have 6 months down the road, they have their roadmaps. The architect of the future is going to need to know what's coming, to not be surprised, because it's important to not make very fast switches when you're doing in your current job, but you have to know what's coming. If you don't know what's coming, you're going to get into trouble.
Exactly, and that not knowing what's coming, I think we've had a bit of a flavor of the year. Or maybe not. Some people were good, predicting, maybe. Ricky, what is then different? Because even if we don't know what might be coming down the line, we do know that we're doing a lot of cloud-based work, and we know that some MSPs were ready and some maybe were not, or whatever. But what does that do to the architect of the future?
Well, I think like Robert and Ron kind of both hit the nail on the head, is being adaptable and being able to be flexible and shift, right? You can't be too set in your ways. As you know, the current situation has enlightened many people to, you have to be able to, pivot quickly and adjust accordingly. And I think that's kind of the key thing, as many organizations are seeing the transition to the cloud, some, reluctantly, in some situations because they've been forced to. A lot of that shift is going to be adjusting the way you do things. Like Robert mentioned, security is going to be a very different focus because people are expecting now to be able to work from anywhere. I think that's going to be a big reality for a lot of people. Is there's not going to be that office worker versus the remote worker. It's going to be a worker wherever they might be, and giving them the same functionality, same support is going to be key as an architect to be able to accommodate for those kind of situations. Hey, Phelim, you're on mute.
Yeah, now I'm on mute. That accommodating is perhaps where it's at. Even if it's a soft skill, I think it's kind of interesting. Brian asks, how important are APIs in the new borderless environment in the cloud? Maybe that's a good one for Kevin.
Actually, that's a great one for me because our company provides API protection at the edge. So it's extremely important. And I bring that up because your APIs you're exposing programmable interfaces. So, to an attacker, that's just like, hey, let me open my window and leave something valuable to a robber, right? They're going to try you. So the APIs are extremely important. One, because they provide functionality for your application or your site or your internal application, whatever you're hosting. But two, it like I said, it exposes a programmable interface. So attackers are only going to try what's available to them. And if they can hack away and plug and send commands to that API and see what they get back in return, they're going to try it. So it's extremely important to lock down those programmable interfaces just because it's exposed to taking commands in. There's a lot that you can do there. And I think one of the large gaps when dealing with some of the issues that we've run into with APIs, I think it kind of stems back to our training and our education. A lot of it is misconfiguration, things that are missed, trying to stand something up and make it work in a sprint cycle. And a lot of times when you do that, you leave out DevOps, which leaves problems and large holes for the attackers to go after. So I think it's extremely important because it's where I work at Akamai. I think close to about 70% of our traffic, and we see about 30% of the internet's web traffic on a daily basis is API traffic. So that goes to show that a lot of it isn't end user. It's a lot of interactions between applications passing back and forth JSON and XML data. So I think it's really important.
I like it. And we also have Steve, your colleague, on later, talking about SASE.
Nice.
That's
his favorite acronym.
Yes, I thought so. It's good. All right. Well, Tiffany, can you paint a picture of this architect of the future, and how can we build trust and create a vision of shared success between architects?
We're going to go back to what you don't want to hear, Phelim. Communication. We have to be able to communicate with each other, especially our counterpoint internally, or the people who will be implementing whatever it is that we're handing off to the business unit. So you have to be unafraid to communicate with your customers or clients. And I think that's actually the big thing. I've seen that cause more problems than anything. Instead of being very straightforward in your language, people will say everything but what needs to be said, and that causes all kinds of unnecessary issues. So the architect of the future has to be unafraid to communicate. Just plain and simple.
All right. Well, hopefully this architect question can help us get to the meat of where the MSS, MSP, and end user dynamic can lie. I'd be interested, Tiffany, on your take, just a quick take, because we've got another panel looking at the secure managed service provider. What do you think about all these MSPs waking up one day and deciding they're an MSS? I know I don't want to poke the bear, but I thought I'd ask that.
Why not?
Why not? All right, there we go. That's very kind. That's very generous. I know I sprang it on you. It's not at all in the architect questions, but why not? Why not? All right. Well, thanks for being a good sport with that question, Robert. I'll ask you then. Other than communications, how are we going to develop this architect of the future, especially in a multi-cloud, multi-vendor environment?
Yeah. So it's not just, in communication, I think Tiffany hit on the big word, which is fear, right? It's not just communicating, it's overcoming that fear. And so one of the biggest fears I see that needs to be overcome is the fear to reach out to the cloud providers, forming relationships with their technical development teams, you know, whether it be the developer workshops at AWS, or making a call, getting somebody on Azure, getting Google to come out to your site, talking to their engineers. These organizations, these large cloud providers, they all have systems for outreach for architects, but actually going out and getting there is that big differentiator between an architecture that's effective and an architect who's not. And so forming that relationship, having monthly meetings with all of the cloud providers, technical leads, finding out what are we going to see with these services in 6 months? Where are things going? What are my pain points for how I'm utilizing these cloud services? You know, I'll throw out an example like AWS Lambda. You know, there was a point where it was extremely limited. A lot of people tried it, thought that it was going to be the next big step for a lot of their applications. It didn't work. Well, having a relationship with AWS, talking about the pain points, talking about the things that need to change, the improvements that need to be made, they're welcome to it. All the cloud providers are just yearning for an architect to give them a call, set up a communication and say, well, what is it that you need to accomplish your goal? And so it becomes a big part of, you know, your daily job is to have those interactions and focus on, you know, helping those cloud providers provide the services that will help you succeed, help your customers can succeed and go forward. And so, and they're all welcome to it. And it's not even just the cloud providers. There's also, you know, large scale cloud services, you know, Elasticsearch and Splunk and all of these, you know, they're not quite a cloud provider, but they're services that are available on all the clouds. They also are yearning for that chance to talk to architects, help develop what the next steps are. What are your priorities? And you can really steer the direction of these gigantic ships just by having those conversations. And it's valuable to you. It's also valuable to them. Everybody wins, you know.
I like it. Win-win, win-win. Well, we basically got 1 minute left. And I'd love to just go Ron and then Ricky. Architects of the future in a nutshell. Give us a quick vision.
They have to have all around kind of education, I guess, like technological, personal, adapt fast. They also have to be able to say, yes, I can plan it, but it's not going to work to the client. Sometimes things that they want, it's not going to work. And the architect needs to articulate it and not just continue on with the conversation with a client. I
like it, like the perfectly perpendicular line that's also wavy. I don't know if any of you have seen that video. Anyway, it's good. Ricky, architect of the future.
Yeah, I think, you know, as everybody kind of mentioned, communication is going to be key. The collaboration piece of working, really bringing both sides together is going to be crucial for any architect of the future. And then, as Ron mentioned, you know, the ability to pivot and shift and learn and not be afraid to say, I don't know. But to have the same enthusiasm to go out and learn, right? I think that's the big challenge is a lot of people are set in their ways and don't want to take that next step to learn. And I think that's kind of the key challenge is just being able to embrace not knowing and going after it and really educating yourself.
Very good. Very good. Well, I've had a lot of fun with this panel. I hope the questions went in a relatively good-natured way for everyone. And, you know, I know there's no magic bullet, you know, for the architects of the future, but it's certainly worth exploring. And best regards to Ankit recovering from Corona. Thank you very much. Please give Kevin, Ricky, Ron, Robert, and Tiffany a massive round of applause. It's been great having you on.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, fellow.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. So wonderful. Okay. No. All right. Awesome. Lots of great topics. Lots of great feedback. We've got a really action-packed agenda. As I said, we're very grateful to our supporters, and in particular, our next supporter, Stellar Cyber, Brian Stoner, great friend of the series. I'm very, very pleased to invite Brian to the stage. We're going to address a few elephants in the room. We've got a lot of ground to cover. We're running 10 minutes behind, but it's all right. We just keep on going, and we will